local savings sitting in your mailbox right now? Money Pages is packed with real coupons from your favorite local businesses. Save money at restaurants like Al's Pizza, on pet care at Forever Vets, and on entertainment for the whole family at the Alhambra Theater. Plus, make sure to download the Money Pages app for savings on the go.
Money Pages in your mailbox right now.
Beat the spring cleaning rush and call Zero Res. Hey, Hicken here. Step into a fresher, cleaner home this spring with Zero Res. You might think because you mop off and your floors are clean, but they're actually collecting dirt not obvious to the eye. After a while, the hardwood or tile or LVP looks dull. This is where Zero Res can help. This month, 20% off all hard floor cleaning. 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at just $135. Call 287-5727 or go online at ZeroResJacksonville.com. Make sure to ask for the 1010XL special.
Zero Res.
1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Focused, fueled, fearless, Farah. He's Hacker.
Talk about a fried egg. I lasted about 5 minutes out there. I said, to heck with this. I'll do this in the morning. And I don't have any inside information. The lady that did it, she got in there. She made it happen.
And he doesn't shy away from opinion.
And I do enjoy drinking cold beer at ballparks. So if that makes me a baseball fan, then I'm a diehard baseball fan.
It's Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
And a very good Monday evening to you, Jacksonville. It is Hacker After Dark, 1010XL, 92.5 FM with Aaron Williams. The Hacker Ryan Green with you. Glad you are with us. A Monday that kicks off. Boy, what a week it's going to be in the sports world and here on Hacker After Dark. So we have the Jaguars back to work 99 days. After the playoff loss to the Buffalo Bills, the Jaguars were back at the Miller Electric Center earlier today for the first day of off-season voluntary workouts. They will begin on the field work next month with rookie minicamp and, of course, OTAs. That'll go into June. And then, of course, at the end of July, we're going to kick this whole thing off over again with the beginning of Jaguar training camp. So the boys were back in town. We'll certainly talk about that. It's also a big week for the Jaguars. Of course, it's NFL Draft Week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday up in Pittsburgh. Round 1 on Thursday night. Probably won't be a big night for the Jaguars. They currently do not have a first-round pick, of course. But Friday night could be a very big night because they are currently scheduled to select 4 times. On day 2, pick 56, pick 81, pick 88, and pick 100. They also have 7 more picks on Saturday in rounds 4 through 7. So as it stands right now, 11 draft picks total for Jacksonville, and we will certainly do a lot of final talk about the draft as we are 72 hours away from Roger Goodell walking across that podium in Pittsburgh to start the NFL draft and officially put the Las Vegas Raiders on the clock. So a ton of Jaguar conversation tonight. In fact, Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports has been one of my draft guys for years. We'll have one more conversation with Luke tonight before the draft about what the Jaguars may, or in some instances may not do this week up in Pittsburgh. NBA playoffs. Well, how about the Orlando Magic? The only road team all weekend. 8 series, 7 home teams just win in blowout fashion. The Magic, the only road team to win and win decisively. The 8 seed over the 1 seed Detroit in game number 1. A game in which Detroit never led. 48 minutes. The Pistons never led last night. What has gotten into Orlando? We'll talk Magic tonight. We'll talk NBA playoffs with Brian Toporek of Bleacher Report and Forbes. And I also want to talk a little bit about the college recruiting game. You see what John Summerall's doing with Florida? For that matter, Mike Norvell and Florida State making a little bit of noise in the recruiting game as well. Andrew Ivins is the director of high school football scouting for 247sports.com. We'll talk both Florida and Florida State recruiting, where things stand right now. Remember, it's not like it used to be. The summer used to be kind of the dead period for commitments. Not anymore. A lot of these kids want to get this stuff done and get committed before their senior years begin of high school. And those senior years begin in late July, early August. So we're in about a 90-day window now where you're going to see a ton of commitments. In fact, Florida has had 4 of them just in the last 10 days alone. So we'll do a deep dive into where things stand on the recruiting trail with both Florida and Florida State. Andrew Ivins, 24/7 Sports. He is the director of high school football scouting of 24/7 Sports, and he joins us later on in the 9 o'clock hour. Real quick, I want to get this out there too. Gator basketball related. I'm sure you guys saw this. Ruben Chinyelu, for the second straight year, declaring for the NBA draft with the caveat that he is once again maintaining college eligibility. And he released on social media earlier today that if he indeed withdraws from the draft, like he did last year, he will be back at the University of Florida. So now we will wait to see what Ruben Chinyelu decides to do. Again, Alex Condon, from my understanding, did not have that luxury because you can only put your name in the draft hat twice and then withdraw. Condon's already done it twice. Chinyelu only did it once last year, so he has another year to do it. So it makes sense for Ruben to go through the process again, see what the scouts have to say, and if he likes what he hears, maybe he goes into the NBA draft. But if they tell him you're going to be a second-round pick, as all the projections say that he's going to be, then he'll probably wind up back at the University of Florida. So Ruben Chinyelu, a little bit of clarity on that. We're going to have to wait and see what ultimately does happen. And now, Gator fans, I'm not trying to scare you, and I'm not trying to stir up anything, but a couple reports coming out this afternoon that Golden State, if Steve Kerr calls it a career, and if he retires, and there's speculation that Kerr's going to retire and that Steph Curry and Draymond Green are going to be traded, and Golden State's basically going to blow it up. And there's a report out by Kevin O'Connor, who's a pretty good NBA reporter. That's where I saw it. He released like a little, just a little blurb, right? I mean, it wasn't a big-time report, just a little blurb, a little something to think about. That if Kerr does call it a career, Golden State would be very interested in Todd Golden. Remember, Todd Golden coached at the University of San Francisco in the Bay Area. He has ties to that area. Obviously, the Will Richard connection, right, for whatever that's worth. And I've told you guys, and I've been told this, NBA teams are intrigued by Todd Golden. Gator fans, you don't want to hear that. I was hoping it would be Orlando, but it does not surprise me that his name is coming up in potentially, keyword potentially, some of these NBA job openings. So just keep that in the back of your mind, that if Steve Kerr calls it a career, there are rumors circulating that Todd Golden would be of interest to Golden State. Didn't even say a favorite, didn't say the leader in the clubhouse, said of interest. So we'll ultimately see where that goes. Glad you're with us on a Monday. Again, we are absolutely loaded. We're with you till 10 o'clock. We're glad you're with us. Luke Easterling talking NFL draft. That comes up in less than 15 minutes. Every night here on HAD, we do kick it off with a big deal of the night. And Aaron Williams, let's do that right now.
Time now for the big deal of the night
What's the big deal?
What is the big deal?
No, because it is a big deal.
on Hacker After Dark.
We'll let you hear from Jaguar head coach Liam Cohen in just a moment. He met the media earlier today down at the Miller Electric Center. 99 days ago. Boy, when you say it like that, it feels like a long time. Doesn't seem that long, but 99 days, that's a long time. 14 weeks. 99 days ago, the Jacksonville Jaguars lost to the Buffalo Bills, ending what was one of the funnest, craziest Jaguar seasons we've had in a long, long time. And what a 99 days it has been, right? From the uncertainty about the futures of Grant Udinski and Anthony Campanile, to the departures of Travis Etienne and Devin Lloyd, to the arrival of Chris Rodriguez, to the re-signing of Quentin Morris and Dennis Gardeck and Monteric Brown, to the contract extension of Trayvon Walker. Today, the Jaguars pick up the fifth-year team option on offensive tackle Anton Harrison. A lot has gone on in the last 99 days. But just like that, snap of the finger, and your Jacksonville Jaguars, along with every other team in the NFL, is back to work with off-season activities officially beginning. They began 2 weeks ago for all the clubs with first-year head coaches. And today, everybody came in, and everybody now is going through their off-season program. And again, OTAs begin next month. Rookie minicamp will also be at some point next month. You know, if I would have told you 99 days ago after losing to Buffalo and a sting of that loss that both coordinators would return, you would have been pumped, right? Because there was a lot of uncertainty about that. If I would have told you that 20 of the 22 players that started in that playoff game against Buffalo are going to be back with the Jaguars in 2026, you would have been pumped. That is excellent as far as keeping the core of this team together. If I would have told you the likes of Monteric Brown and Trayvon Walker were going to get contract extensions, Anton Harrison was going to get his fifth-year option picked up, yeah, I think you would have absolutely taken that 99 days ago. You would have been excited. Obviously, the two big ones are the departure of ETN and Devin Lloyd. Do we have clarity on how the Jaguars are going to solve those issues? Well, at running back, they brought in Chris Rodriguez. They obviously have Bashal Tootin and LaQuint Allen Jr. Linebacker, I think we're going to find out on Friday what their plan is there. They do have Ventrell Miller. They do have Branson Combs. Jack Kaiser is more the other linebacker position. He's kind of Foyer's backup. I think you're going to draft a linebacker on Friday. But you take everything into account that's happened in the last 99 days since the Jaguars lost that game to Buffalo. By the way, getting clarity on where the Jaguars are going to play in 2027, right? Camping World Stadium in Orlando. That happened in the last 99 days. You add everything up. Has it been a home run off season? No, because you lost two good players. You can't say it was a home run. Has it been a terrible offseason? No, because you got Trayvon Walker's deal done. You bring back Monteric Brown. You bring in what I think is a good running back in Chris Rodriguez. You retain both coordinators. I think it has been an average offseason. Average as the day is long. There was some good, there was some bad, but there was a lot that was just plain old in the middle. Arguably one of the quietest off seasons in the history of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And when you're coming off a 13-4 campaign, improving your win total by 9 from 2024 to 2025, maybe you needed a plain old average offseason. Nothing too high, nothing too low. Jaguars have had some home run off seasons, man. Let me tell you. They have had some off seasons where they won the day. Didn't mean anything come September, but we were happy about it during the summer months. They've had some off seasons that were horrible, just brutally bad, which laid the framework for brutally bad seasons to come. But very rarely in Jaguar history, very rarely, has an offseason been this quiet, been this, for lack of better terminology, this lackadaisical, right? Just a blah offseason. All right, yeah, you lose Lloyd, you lose ETN. kept the coordinators. You re-signed Trayvon. You re-signed Buster Brown. You bring in Chris Rodriguez. Some news, some notes. What I'm personally interested in is how this team is going to handle success. And the good thing about this team is there's a lot of guys that are going to have to handle success because there's a lot of retainment on this team. There are a lot of guys that were here in 2025 that have returned in 2026. 20 of the 22 starters in that Buffalo playoff game were in the building today at the Miller Electric Center. And that doesn't even take into account Travis Hunter, who you get back off of injury. Has it been the most newsworthy? Has it been the most exciting? Has it been the most over-the-top offseason in Jaguar history? No, far from it. But maybe that's good. Maybe a good old-fashioned, plain, average offseason is what a 13-4 team needed to stabilize themselves from all the craziness of off seasons past to begin focusing on building a foundation that started last year with that 13-4 AFC South championship. Jaguar head coach Liam Cohen met the media earlier today down at the Miller Electric Center. He was asked about his first impressions of guys coming back into the building 99 days after the season ended.
Great. Really good participation. The guys were locked in, answering questions in the meetings, very engaged in the team meeting. Coach Eric Ciano got up and spoke about the Iron Jags and went through that. Went through some of the, draft that's coming up for that this week. And then both offense, defense split up. Both those groups and coordinators were able to talk to the unit, showed a lot of examples of good stuff and then areas in which we can improve. And then they broke up individually to their position groups and then started to dive into three better, three best to the specific player. And while those guys were meeting with the coaches, the other coaches, assistant position coaches, took the rest of the group and started to kind of get through some initial, remembering of terms and concepts and things like that.
Jaguar head coach Liam Cohen. Thank you to our friends at Jaguars.com. You know, coaches coach, right? The coaches have been back to work really since the week after the Super Bowl, like February 10th, I think was the first coaches meeting. So they've had about 2.5 months in that building preparing without the players. At a certain point, you want to get the players back. You want to start going over concepts and new ideas, as Liam Cohen mentioned just then. So Liam Cohen was asked about having the players back in the building, the excitement.
You know, kind of feels like the 26th season kind of getting started, getting a kickoff in a lot of ways. Great to get them back because so much of the work that gets put in throughout the offseason with the coaches, you start to get sick of it. You know, you want to get some of that stuff put into practice is really what I mean is with fundamentals, techniques, concepts, three better, three best with our players. Like you're kind of chomping at the bit, especially like I mentioned last time after you go to the owners meetings and it gets a little bit more competitive and ready to go.
The thoughts of Jaguar head coach Liam Cohen on day number 1 of the Jaguar offseason program. Speaking of the Jaguars, boy, it's a big week for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a big week for every NFL team as the NFL draft 72 hours away. In Pittsburgh, round 1 on Thursday, rounds 2 and 3 on Friday, rounds 4 through 7 on Saturday. The way it is for Jacksonville as of right now, no picks on Thursday because of the Travis Hunter trade a year ago. If that stands, I believe it'll be the first time in franchise history the Jaguars do not have a first-round pick. What they do have are 4 picks on day number 2, 1 in round 2, and 3 picks in round number 3, and then follow that up on Saturday where you got to find those diamonds in the rough. You got to find this year's Bashal Tootin. You got to find this year's LaQuint Allen Jr. You got to find this year's Jonah Monheim and Rayon Lane. Gladstone did a pretty good job on day 3 last year, and as it stands right now, he's got 7 cracks at it on day 3. They got 4 picks on day 2, 7 picks on day 3 for a total of 11. That is tied for the second most entering the draft in the National Football League. Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports, been one of my draft guys for years. Luke is going to join us coming up here in less than 10 minutes to give his final thoughts on the Jaguars and what they may or may not do. And I'm going to ask Luke about the newest Jacksonville Jaguar, of course, our guy Ruke Arroyo, who they acquired from the Atlanta Falcons last week in that trade for Mason Smith. I will tell you, in the NBA playoffs, they are at halftime. Game 2 of the Eastern Conference first round. Cavaliers up 1-0 in the series, and they lead Toronto 54-48 at the half, looking to take a 2-0 series lead. Also, game 2 in the East between the Knicks and the Hawks. Knicks lead that series 1-0 early, 5 minutes into the game. Knicks lead Atlanta 15-9. Knicks looking to go up 2-0. Later on this evening, it'll be Minnesota and Denver. Denver leads that series 1-0. Game 2 of that series will tip at 10:30 Eastern this evening. Back into the National Football League draft. Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports joins us next on a Monday night here in Jacksonville, Florida. What will be a very busy week here on 1010XL, and we're glad you're with us till 10 o'clock. It's Hacker After Dark.
Live streaming from the XL Digital Studios. Brightened by Harbor Dental Care, Jacksonville's first choice for dental emergencies.
Awaken 180 weight loss. Awaken 180 weight loss. Hacker here, and what a weekend I had with Little Hack involving some water balloon battles, going to the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. We did a lot of stuff over the weekend. We had a Nerf gun battle. We were running all over the place. Could I have done that 2 years ago? Of course not. I was well over 300 pounds. I was lethargic. I was tired. I just didn't want to be bothered. Awaken 180 gave me my life back, gave me the opportunity to hang out with my son and play with my son every afternoon, hide and seek, tag, you name it, go to ball games. That is what Awaken 180 has done for me in losing over 100 pounds. The knowledge about losing the weight, why I was as heavy as I was, and how to keep the weight off. No shots, no pills, coaching, knowledge, and the weight drops off. Go to awaken180weightloss.com or call 844-346-1800. Awaken 180 Weight Loss.
Florida Heat doesn't play games, but some AC companies do. You've heard the Too Good to Be True ads. Let's be honest. Nobody sends a licensed AC technician to your house for $25. Suddenly, your cheap tune-up turns into a $1,000 problem. At Duck Duck Rooter Plumbing, Septic, and Air Conditioning, we believe in taking care of our customers. Right now, you can chill out for just $99. That gets you a full AC diagnostic and the truth about your system. No scare tactics. Call 904-862-6769 or duckduckrooter.com.
Get out of the city and into the woods and the water.
Keep on working it.
On the Nimnicht Outdoors Show, Captain Kevin and Captain Kirk join Jeff Lageman.
I am shooting one today.
Get hooked Saturday morning from 7 to 10 on 1010XL.
Buying a diamond should be fun, not stressful. But at some stores, the pressure can be intense, with pushy salespeople and mandatory deposits. But at Beard's Diamonds, owner John Lupo says that's not cool.
They wanted to sell them only what they had, wanted a deposit right then and there. They did not want them to shop, and we don't do business that way. It's pretty sad that you don't want the consumer to go shopping. That must mean that they're not confident in their pricing.
It's different at Beard's.
We encourage people to shop. We want you to go shopping, to know that you're getting a better deal and a better education at Beard's. We will do anything we can to make you happy without putting deposits down.
No deposits, no commission sales, no pressure, no pricing games, no corporate rule books. John's son Ben sums it up nicely. At Beard's, it's laid back and relationship driven.
There's plenty of options out there, but we're looking to go the extra mile when people want to patronize us, and it brings us great pleasure to see two lives be connected together.
Beard's Diamonds, locally owned with over 4 decades of doing business the right way. At St. John's Town Center and online at beardsdiamonds.com.
Credit card interest rates are now over 29%. Most people are only making the minimum payments, so they're getting nowhere. Hey, Prosser here, but here's what many homeowners don't realize. Using the equity in your home, you can easily access hundreds of thousands in cash. With Loan Pronto's Rapid Equity Loan, you can pay off your credit card, your existing HELOC, your car loans, or get money for that home improvement project, One client just got $100,000 approved and saved over $1,500 a month. Here's the best part. With Loan Pronto, you can do it all from your phone. With zero out-of-pocket, no hard credit pull up front, no appraisal, no long drawn-out bank process, and no touching your first mortgage. Rates are at a near 3-year low. Act now. Go to loanpronto.com. See how much you can get in about 60 seconds. Loan Pronto, 2,800 5-star Google reviews. Call 904-999-1508 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
I know you love sports, so why not take that passion and make a difference in your community as a volunteer coach with the YMCA? Whether it's soccer, basketball, volleyball, or flag football, the Y is always looking for positive role models to help kids grow in both skills and character. Even if you've got no coaching experience, that's fine. We'll provide the training. Step up, give back, and be the coach that makes a difference. To volunteer, visit your local Y or fcymca.org.
1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Still present, ready. Farah doesn't flinch. Here's another call on the 1010XL hotline, driven by Key Buick GMC, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty.
Back here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville. We are glad you are with us. We are now inside a week away from the NFL draft up in Pittsburgh. The Jaguars, 11 draft picks total, including 4 inside the top 100, and they've already started draft week off with a roster move. Mason Smith to Atlanta, Rook Aroraro coming to Jacksonville. Interestingly, both guys play the same position, defensive tackle. Both guys were drafted 14 spots apart in the 2024 NFL Draft. Let's go to one of our main draft guys. He's been so for years, Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports. He does a terrific job not only covering the draft, but the rest of the National Football League. And Luke is always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL. Luke, how we doing?
Doing fabulous, man. 'Tis the season. It's my time of year, and always enjoy talking ball with you, buddy.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Really appreciate the time. I know you're busy this time of year. All right, before we get into this year's class, Luke, let's talk about the trade the Jaguars made. Mason Smith to Atlanta just never worked out for him here. He was the 48th pick in the 2024 draft. The Jaguars acquire the 34th pick in the 2024 draft. Same position, defensive tackle Rook Aroraro. What do you remember about Aroraro, and what do you think he'll bring to the Jaguar defense?
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, this deal is, two front offices who did not draft these guys, trading players that just never fit in what the defense or scheme wanted, either from the player or from the position and the role that they were in. So, for Aroraro, it's, Atlanta doesn't have a true nose, and they had him kind of playing out of position and trying to figure out if he could be that when really he's more of a 5-tech with that, the height and the length and the strength that he brings. He's just not that low center of gravity, true nose tackle that you want in that spot. And Mason Smith, he's big enough, but he's kind of a tall guy. And so it's tough for him to play nose, but he's more suited to it at the weight that he usually carries. And so I think this is what this is. It's two guys who were kind of square peg, round hole for the teams they were on, and playing for teams that the front offices have changed over. It's no longer the team that drafted them. And so it's, a fresh start for both. It's a new management system, and hopefully on both sides for both teams, the ability to put these guys in a role that fits their skill sets better than the one they've found up until now at the place they were drafted.
From a Jaguar perspective, Luke, and again, I'm learning about Aroraro as we go on here, but I mean, 3.5 sacks last year. That's 3.5 more than Mason Smith had. I thought the Jaguars might cut Mason Smith, honestly. He was a healthy scratch towards the end of last year. The fact that they get something for him, and not only do they get something, but Aroraro was darn near a first-round pick in 2024. Obviously, it did not work out for him in Atlanta, but on the surface, I kind of liked what the Jaguars did here.
Yeah, I think that's the hope for both teams, really, is like, hey, these guys are both top 50 picks just a couple years ago. We can unlock why they were, right? Like, we can be the team that puts them in position to become that player. And for Jacksonville, the hope is, again, with Aroraro, it's can we not ask him to do something he's not built to do? Can we set him up to be successful schematically and use? Because if you go back to the tape at Clemson, I mean, the height, the length, the strength, all of those things, and maybe you move him from, maybe he's not a traditional 3 technique with his ability to get upfield, but you can slide him around the front pretty much everywhere but nose tackle. And you can do some creative things with your alignment, and maybe you do get some more pass rush out of that than you got out of Mason Smith. But I do think that it's almost, I know it's only 2 years away from them being top 50 picks, but this is like the player version of a late round pick swap. Like it's basically like a 6 for a 7 or a 7 for a 6, where it's like, hey, this guy's not working out here. We didn't draft him anyway. You have a similar guy at the same position. Let's swap and see if both guys can, figure out end up in a better spot. That's kind of how it feels to me, even though these guys were so highly drafted just a couple years ago.
Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports. All right, Pittsburgh, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The NFL draft, the Jaguars, 11 picks total, including 4 inside the top 100. Luke, you and I spoke about a month ago. At that point, we were pretty clear that it was going to be a very heavy defensive class for Jacksonville. I still believe that. I'd say I would take 7 or 7.5 as the over-under on the amount of draft picks of the 11 the Jaguars will spend on the defensive side of the ball. Let's begin with 56. If they keep 56, and that's their first pick, what are we thinking? Linebacker, interior defensive line? What's your thought there?
Yeah, I think that seems to be a good range for them. Linebacker is a position where, and I do these 4-round mock drafts every week at Athlon, where I get into that point in the draft on a regular basis to see who's tends to be on the board over and over for them there. And linebacker is a position where there's consistently, whether it's Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas, Jake Golday from Cincinnati, who I think is very similar in kind of body type and skill set to what they had in Devin Lloyd. So if they're looking for that type of guy to replace him after he left in free agency, that could make a lot of sense. Josiah Trotter from Missouri, I like a lot. Kyle Lewis from Pitt, who's very like a undersized kind of hybrid. He reminds me, the high end of what he could be is like Levante David when he was coming out of Nebraska, because he was very undersized. People were like, we're not sure if he, is athletic enough to be a safety or big enough to be a linebacker. Obviously, not everybody's going to be a future Hall of Famer after 15 years in the NFL like Levante was, but that Kyle Lewis from Pitt is that type of undersized guy that I think will be able to stick and be successful. So it just depends on what they're looking at the position, but I like the value that they'll have at linebacker there. The other positions, again, there could be a defensive tackle that I'm happy with there, especially now that you bring in Aurora Rowe to maybe not be the nose, but if you still need a nose, I really like Daryl Jackson Jr. out of Florida State, 6'5", 333. He's got some alignment versatility to him too, but he's definitely big enough and strong enough to play that true nose tackle spot. And then I think corner is still an underrated spot where they could, if the right player falls to them in that range, they could be really happy with it. And I think the corner class is deep enough to give them some options there. I don't know if D'Angelo Ponce from Indiana gets there. I don't know if maybe they want more of a slot nickel type guy, and Keontae Scott from Miami, who's an incredible run defender, great instincts, really smart player. They're going to have a lot of defensive options there. Safety, I think, is still among them, and that could be a good range for a guy like A.J. Halsey from LSU, Kamari Ramsey from USC, who played in the slot more than I think he really should have last year, but as a pure safety, I think he's a much better player. They're going to have all kinds of options there. Should be able to walk away with a value pick and an immediate starter with that pick at any number of positions.
2 months ago, the idea that Caleb Banks would fall to 56 was a pipe dream. I'm still not sure he is going to fall to 56, but that foot seems to be scaring some people off. It's like the third issue he's had with that foot, and for a 340-pound defensive tackle, that gets people's attention. A, is Banks falling because of the foot, and B, would that be worth the risk for Jacksonville?
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point it's definitely worth the risk. And everything you just said is real. When you've got the foot issue just keeps popping up for a guy that big, there is real concern that that's just something that's going to never really be out of the way and always something that's going to be a nagging concern. And you hate that because when you turn on the tape, the inconsistency is frustrating in terms of his ability to consistently play at a high level on every snap. But if all you did was show somebody a highlight reel of this guy, he's a top 10 pick. I mean, he's so explosive, so disruptive. And with that, again, that size, that wingspan, the power and the quickness that he brings at that size, That just doesn't happen very often. There's only so many human beings walking the planet who are that big and that athletic, that explosive. And so you saw some of it at the Senior Bowl during practices as well. So again, when he's healthy and when he's playing his best, he's a dominant guy, and I don't think he would get anywhere near the 56th pick. But when you factor all those things in, again, the inconsistency on film, the foot injury, and the the lack of certainty about whether or not that's going to be a nagging thing going forward, he could be on the board there. I think it's unlikely just because I think so many teams picking ahead of them in that, early to mid second round range would be willing to take that chance. I think of, Kansas City at 40, Cincinnati at 41, Atlanta is in the 40s picking there. New Orleans is there as well, Minnesota, Green Bay. I just don't see him getting past all of those teams. Somebody's going to take a chance on him before he gets to Jacksonville, I think.
Couple of more for Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports, talking NFL draft. Offensively, Luke, you look at the depth chart. Tight end probably is something they're going to address in Pittsburgh. Brenton Strange is outstanding. But after him, Quentin Morris is good. They re-signed him. They obviously like him. And they have Hunter Long, but they could probably use another tight end. I know they've talked with guys like with Delp from Georgia, with Sowers from Vanderbilt. What is your thought on tight end potentially in round 3?
Yeah, I think it should be on their radar just because I love the tight end class. I think it's extremely deep. I think you're going to have a bunch of fun options there. And it's about what type of tight end do you want? With Strange, he's a little bit more of the receiving specialist. I'd feel like maybe you want a guy that's going to be give you a little bit more as a blocker in the run game there. Sam Roush from Stanford is a guy I'm a huge fan of. He's a top 5 tight end in this class for me. And he's kind of the decent receiver, but just an incredible blocking presence. And I think he would be a great fit there. You mentioned Oscar Delp. I think he's the second best tight end in this draft behind Kenyon Sadiq. He's a top 50 player to me. I think he's got a potential to be not necessarily in skill set, but similar to George Kittle. When George Kittle came out of Iowa, he had caught 48 passes in 4 years. And that's why he was a 5th round pick, because everybody's like, well, he's not going to make an impact in the passing game. He caught like 12 passes a year. Then he goes to, San Francisco, and because of the way they use him, they tapped into something there. And with Oscar Delp, the athleticism that you see on the stat sheet from the combine, and you see he's such a great athlete, and the few times he did get the chance to catch the ball, he's just an explosive athlete after the catch. He can stretch the field. And again, you're not playing tight end at Georgia if you can't block. So he brings that to the table as well. But I love so many of these tight ends. Mike Trigg from Baylor is more of a receiving specialist. Same with Stowers from Vanderbilt. They're not going to give you as much in the blocking game, but those are guys that can make big plays in the passing game. Joe Royer from Cincinnati, I think, is underrated. They're gonna have some options there again if they want to go there with one of those 3rd round picks. Roush is the guy that I think is probably the best fit for what they need and how it would complement Strange. But they're gonna have a ton of options there. I love this tight end class.
Luke, as we begin to wrap up, non-Jaguar related, but I'm curious, on Thursday night, who is the guy, in your opinion, that's going to get drafted way higher than people expect right now?
I think a couple of guys. The last month or so, the media in particular has kind of been thinking that Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver from Arizona State, was going to, maybe slide to the back end of the 1st round. The closer we get, it sure seems like the opposite is happening. He had a workout today at Arizona State. By all accounts, passed with flying colors. He's been dealing with a nagging hamstring injury that's been bothering him through, all the way back to last season. It seems like the closer we get, more and more people that I hear from, that his conversation is starting at number 5 to the Giants at that high. And so that's just not something we've heard in the last month. If you're going to the back end of the 1st round, a couple of guys that I think some people might be surprised to see in that range. I'd say Malachi Lawrence, the edge rusher from UCF, Chris Johnson, corner from San Diego State, and then Blake Miller, the right tackle from Clemson. I think we could see 7 offensive tackles in the 1st round. I don't think that's a crazy number, and Blake Miller could be that last guy that sneaks in there, a guy that may not have the ceiling of some of the other guys that'll go ahead of him, but he started 54 games at right tackle for Clemson, and so I think the polish and the experience he brings to the table. You look at a team like Kansas City picking at 29, who moved on from Jawan Taylor. Maybe that's the perfect spot for them to get a guy who they know can come in right away because of that experience and play really, really well for them at a high level.
Almost the exact opposite question, Luke. Every year we see somebody in the green room that's there way longer than we would expect. Is there a guy that you think is going to fall on Thursday night?
I mean, in terms of the green room, the only guy I'm kind of worried about is Caden McDonald from Ohio State, just because I don't know how the league's going to feel about a 2-down kind of nose tackle type in the first round. I think he's worthy of consideration, and he should come off the board Thursday night. But he's a guy that might stick around longer than he might expect just because of how they value that position. And I think the one we're all waiting to see is Ty Simpson. You know, is somebody going to jump into the first round and take him off the board? I don't think he goes to the Jets at 16 or Pittsburgh at 21. I really don't think those teams are in on him. I think the team to watch is Arizona. I think the Cardinals, if Simpson's still on the board into the late 20s, I think the Cardinals are the team that make the most sense to make a jump from the high second round pick that they have, jump back into those last few picks of the first round, one of those playoff teams that's willing to move back, and you secure, hopefully for them, your quarterback of the future in Ty Simpson. But if they don't make that move, I'm interested to see if he stays on the board for quite a while.
It's going to be a fun 3 days. The Jaguars, as of now, will not be drafting on Thursday night, but they have 11 picks total, including 4 on day number 2. Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports. Luke, tell the good folks here in Jacksonville about your coverage leading up to the draft on Thursday and what they can expect over there at the website.
Yeah, we've got a fresh 4-round mock draft out on this past Thursday. It's my last kind of deep dive where I go into the first 4 rounds. I project some trades. So the first 140 picks are covered there, so plenty of stuff for the Jags fans to eat up there. And then moving forward, I mean, we've already got offensive and defensive sleepers up at athlonsports.com. I've just published my list of the best small school prospects to watch this morning. And then next week, I've got an alternating first-round mock draft with myself and Doug Farrar, who writes for us at Athlon Sports, longtime NFL writer who knows his stuff. So we make a pick back and forth in that mock draft. I've also got another mock draft coming out next week where I've put together an all-star team of 32 different experts, you know, local beat writers and team experts, some national guys from all around, from ESPN, The Athletic, and put together a murderer's row of GMs to make all 32 picks, and even got some folks to make the second-round picks as well. So Demetrius Harvey from there in your neck of the woods will be making the Jaguars' second-round pick. So we'll have everybody covered in the expert mock draft as well. And then obviously when things kick off on Thursday, I'll be doing live grades and analysis of every first round pick as it happens. We'll have best available players after every day, best picks, worst picks. You know, we'll have it covered from every single angle. And then before you know it, you'll be seeing 2027 big boards and mock drafts before the dust is even settled. So athlonsports.com, we've got you covered all the way.
It is a busy time of year. Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports. Luke, I know you're busy. Thank you for the time. Let's get back together after the draft. We'll see how James Gladstone and the Jaguars fared. Appreciate you, my friend.
You bet, man. Looking forward to it anytime.
Guggen Nation powers activate.
Who talks like that?
1010XL.
Bueller. Stay cooler with Bueller.
Hey, buddy. Why so glum?
Stinky ice cubes, Jason. It's all downhill from here.
What?
The tap water at my place smells kind of funky. Funky tap water makes funky ice cubes. I meet a nice girl, invite her back to my place for a cocktail, and blow my whole romantic gesture with a mojito that smells like dog's feet.
Wait, I can totally make you way cooler.
I'm not taking your charity ice cubes, Jason. I have my pride.
Your pride is safe. Our plumbers can be at your house the day you call and install a whole home water purification system. Water tastes better, dishes come out cleaner, even your hair feels better after you shower.
Ooh, the ladies love a man with soft hair, don't they, Jason?
Life moves pretty fast. If you spend every day worried about the water in your own home, you could miss it.
Stay cooler with Bueller.
Visit BuellerAir.com.
If you are an experienced electrician looking for your next big opportunity, look no further than the Miller Electric Company, a trusted name in the industry for over 96 years. At Miller Electric, we tackle the biggest projects in the city, offering you the chance to showcase your skills on a grand scale. We believe in rewarding hard work with the best pay, top-notch benefits, and an unbeatable culture where people actually care about each other. Take your career to new heights with Miller Electric Company. Apply today at millercareers.com. Miller Electric, an equal opportunity employer.
Checkmate.
I'm Brendan Cecilia, founder of Checkmate Coatings.
And I'm Chester, the Checkmate Chessman.
At most companies, people start on the ground floor and work their way up to the corner office. At Checkmate, I started on the ground floor, and almost 20 years in, that's still where I am, making ground floors look awesome, one garage at a time.
Well, I started as a pawn and worked my way up to king.
No, you didn't. Some guy drew you as a king. I asked them to give you a roller, so at least you look like one of the guys.
Yes, I rather would have preferred a sword.
At Checkmate, I work personally with our teams to perfect the preparation and application techniques that make Checkmate floors beautiful and durable.
And I keep things classy with my adorable accent.
Beautiful floors?
Check. Guaranteed to last?
Check. The finishing touch your home deserves? Checkmate.
Transforming your floors, making them great. Checkmate.
Visit checkmatecoatings.com.
It's time to take your season to the next level when the Jaguars return to the bank in 2026. Become a season ticket member and unlock exclusive access to ticketed events, members-only experiences, NFL membership club perks, and more. Availability is limited due to in-bowl renovations, so don't wait. Call 904-633-2000 or visit jaguars.com/season tickets to secure your spot at the center of the action. We'll see you at the bank this fall.
An evening with legendary comedian Jeff Foxworthy.
But they have a rule in my neighborhood. If you walk your dog and your dog does his business in somebody else's yard, you need to get a little plastic bag, pick it up, and dispose of it. So you drive through my neighborhood and there's all these attractive women walking around with poo-poo purses.
Jeff Foxworthy Live, April 23rd, 7:30 p.m. at Thrasher Horn Center. Get tickets now at thcenter.org.
1010XL's draft previews are built by Purple Heart Pools, your veteran pool company.
Former ESPN All-American offensive lineman Chris Pasantis of Texas A&M held a near-perfect protection efficiency last season. Cincinnati linebacker Jake Golday averaged 12 tackles a game last season in the Big 12. And San Diego State's Chris Johnson was one of the top cornerbacks in the draft with 148 tackles and 6 interceptions for 2 touchdowns, potentially giving Jacksonville a highly coveted lockdown corner.
1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. When it's game time, Farah doesn't flinch. Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
Yes, it is. Glad you're with us. Thank you to Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports for joining us tonight here on Hacker After Dark. More on the Jacksonville Jaguars coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. Again, they reported back to work today. The offseason program, day one, earlier today at the Miller Electric Center, 99 days after the playoff loss to Buffalo. The guys are back in to get ready and prepared and turn the page to the 2026 season. So, Florida Gator fans, I have something here that might make you have indigestion after you're just finishing off your dinner this evening. Now, I saw this report from Kevin O'Connor from, I believe, Yahoo. He's an accomplished NBA guy. He's covered the league for a while. And I didn't really think too much of it when I saw it a couple hours ago until I just recently listened to it. Kevin O'Connor was on a podcast. He's with Yahoo, and he's covered the league for many, many years. And he was asked about Golden State. And the thought with Golden State is that Steve Kerr is probably going to retire. Nobody then knows the futures of Draymond Green or Steph Curry. It could be a complete rebuild in Golden State. But Kevin O'Connor of Yahoo, covering the NBA, was asked what he is hearing if Steve Kerr were to retire as head coach of the Golden State Warriors. And the word golden came up, but it was not the name of the team. Play the audio. Kevin O'Connor earlier today of Yahoo.
Here's what I've heard, Kelly. If Steve Kerr leaves, the Warriors will pursue Florida Gators head coach Todd Golden, according to my league sources. And within that ESPN story, they mentioned they might look at the college ranks. Golden is the coach that they're targeting, and that's in part because the Lacob family has a relationship with him. Golden was the head coach of the San Francisco Dons for 3 years before he went to Florida and won a national title there. They've been together. They've had lunches together. Those guys know each other, and Golden is a very, very talented young head coach. And so I think for the Warriors, Golden would be near the top of their list, if not at the top of the list. The thing is, would Golden even want to leave the Gators? He has a great situation there in Florida. They're 1 year removed from a national title. No guarantee he'd want to be going to an uncertain situation with the Golden State Warriors. That said, though, that is what I'm hearing for the Warriors as their main target at the college ranks when it comes to who that college coach is. It's Todd Golden.
All right. So that's Kevin O'Connor of Yahoo Sports covering the NBA. Now, again, let's dissect what he said there. Remember, Todd Golden did spend 3 years as head coach at the University of San Francisco. So he obviously knows the Golden State folks. They were in the same city. When you're the coach of the college team in town, odds are you've broken bread many times with the NBA fellas that are in the same town. Will Richard, there's that connection, but that's probably a non-factor. That's just something to point out for our audience, that Will Richard is out there as well for Golden State. Boy, I got to tell you, this, look, would he leave Florida for Golden State? I made the idea on social media a couple weeks ago that as an Orlando Magic fan, I would love for Orlando to call Todd Golden. And I was really on that train after Mike Malone took the job at North Carolina. And oh my gosh, people were just so furious. Hacker, how can you even bring that up? He's not leaving. He's not leaving. He's not leaving. Well, maybe he doesn't leave. Maybe he doesn't. But the point then that I was making with the Magic job, and now what Kevin O'Connor of Yahoo is saying about Golden State, is the bigger point. The NBA is going to come calling for Todd Golden. It's not a matter of if they're going to come calling. It's a matter of when. And at that point, we'll see how loyal Todd Golden is to the University of Florida. I don't want Golden to leave. Now, I would be torn if it was him going to Orlando. Admittedly, I'd be torn about that. But I hope Todd Golden stays at Florida. But let's think about this. He's 40, 41 years old. He's already been to the mountaintop. He's already won a national championship. I've heard from numerous people, and this is why I kind of brought up the Orlando thing. Golden's going to be in the NBA one day. It's going to happen. Again, it's not if. He's not Krzyzewski or Roy Williams or Dean Smith from the sense that he's going to be a college guy his entire life. He's not. If Golden State offers him the job and he doesn't take it this year, his name will be in NBA circles next year. If he doesn't take a job next year, his name will be in NBA circles in 2028. As long as he continues to win at Florida, which there's no reason why he shouldn't, his name is going to be mentioned in NBA circles until he ultimately takes an NBA job. It is a formality. And Gator fans, you might not like to hear that, and I'm sorry, but that's reality for you on a Monday evening. Enjoy him while you have him. I know many of you thought Billy Donovan would never leave. Now, it took Billy a long time to leave, but he ultimately did. I don't believe Todd Golden will be at Florida as long as Billy Donovan was at Florida. I mean, Donovan was at Florida for what? 20 years?
I think 18 years.
Yeah, about to say 96 to 14. Yeah, just shy of 20 years. Not a chance on this planet that Todd Golden's at Florida for 18 years. If we get to 8, I think you should be happy. That would be 4 more years of Todd Golden. And I don't think he's going to take another college job. I agree with that. I threw out North Carolina, and that got a lot of in Kentucky, and boy, people were mad about that. But I even said then, I think Golden's an NBA guy. I think Kentucky would call if they fire Mark Pope. I think the big boys are always going to call, assuming Golden wins. But I don't believe he's leaving for another college job. He's going to go to the NBA. And if Golden State calls, probably would be enticing for a guy that has roots in that area. But what would he be inheriting? If they're rebuilding without Steph and without Draymond and Butler's coming off an ACL and who knows if they're going to keep Porzingis. I mean, when you're a guy like Todd Golden, you're going to have options as long as you keep winning at Florida. I would think it would be enticing to take over Golden State, but are you taking over Golden State or are you taking over just simply the logo on the uniform? Because the logo on the uniform isn't going to win you 60 games. The logo on the uniform without Steph, without Draymond, and maybe without Jimmy Butler might win you 25 games next year, no matter how good a coach you are. But there you have it. Kevin O'Connor of Yahoo earlier today thinks that if Steve Kerr leaves, retires from Golden State, that their first call would be to Todd Golden. What does Golden do if that's the case? Not to ruin your Monday evening, Gator fans, just giving you my 2 cents. Speaking of the NBA, the Orlando freaking Magic. We'll talk about it next on Hacker After Dark.
Sports sounds better on radio.
I love it. I love it.
You get the most live sports on 1010XL.
I'm here with Danny Van Sickle, director of the Electrical Training Alliance. Danny, tell me about your program.
Hey, Rick. We're a 4-year electrical apprenticeship. Our students start out making over $40,000 a year, and right now make over $90,000 a year, including benefits. There is no tuition or student debt. You just have to apply and get accepted.
Did you say no tuition and no student debt?
You heard that right, Rick. Once you're accepted to the program, your only cost for the books and the course fees. About $800 a year.
That sounds like an amazing opportunity. How can I learn more?
Just go to etajax.org and you can apply there.
Apply by May 14th.
If you can't wait for kickoff, tip-off, or the first pitch, get your Gator fix anytime with a Gator podcast channel. Exclusive Florida Gator content from 1010XL. Set up by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists on the video and social channels of 1010XL.
Credit card interest rates are now over 29%. Most people are only making the minimum payments, so they're getting nowhere. Hey, Prosser here, but here's what many homeowners don't realize. Using the equity in your home, you can easily access hundreds of thousands in cash. With Loan Pronto's Rapid Equity Loan, you can pay off your credit cards, your existing HELOC, your car loans, or get money for that home improvement project. One client just got $100,000 approved and saved over $1,500 a month. Here's the best part. With Loan Pronto, you can do it all from your phone. With zero out-of-pocket, no hard credit pull up front, no appraisal, no long drawn-out bank process, and no touching your first mortgage. Rates are at a near 3-year low. Act now. Go to loanpronto.com. See how much you can get in about 60 seconds. Loan Pronto, 2,800 5-star Google reviews. Call 904-999-1508 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Double the action, double the fun. Join Sporting Jags Saturday, April 25th at UNF's Hodges Stadium for an exciting pro soccer doubleheader. The women's team gets things going at 2 against Lexington, featuring an appearance from competitive eating legend Joey Chestnut. Have a blast after in the fun zone before the men pick things back up at 7:30 against Miami. Secure your seats at sportingjacks.com or call 863-KICK. That's 863-KICK. Pro Soccer, Pro Jacks.
What's happening, folks? E.T. here, and it's that time of year again for the Taste of Golf at TPC Sawgrass happening April 22nd. Join me for fine cuisine from chefs from the top golf clubs in our area, craft cocktails, games, and exclusive auction items. This is one of the most impactful charitable events in our area. Come network with a sophisticated audience who is passionate about golf and its values. All proceeds benefit the kids of First Tee North Florida. For tickets, go to tasteofgolf.com.
1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Focused, fueled, fearless, Farah. Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
Approaching halftime, Hacker After Dark, 1 hour down, 1 hour to go. We'll take you up till 10 o'clock as we do every night right here on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM. Brian Toporek of Bleacher Report and Forbes talking NBA with us in less than 15 minutes. Speaking of the NBA playoffs going on right now in the Eastern Conference. Game 2, Cleveland up 83-75 on Toronto as they near the end of the third quarter. Cleveland looking to take a 2-0 lead in that series. Good one at the Garden right now. About halfway through the second quarter, Knicks and Hawks. Knicks lead the series 1-0, and they lead the game 35-34. Atlanta giving the Knicks a battle in Game 2. You don't want to lose and go down 2-0. I know that both Toronto and Atlanta go home after tonight. But, man, if you go down 0-2, that means you got to win 4 out of 5. And I just think it's going to be really hard for either Atlanta or Toronto to win 4 out of 5 in these series. If you want to make this a series, the Raptors got to find a way to come back in the fourth quarter, and the Hawks have to get one at the Garden tonight. Same thing goes for the Timberwolves later on this evening. They play Denver. Denver leads that series 1-0. That is a 10:30 tip out in Mile High. A team that did go into somebody else's house and win last night is the Orlando Magic. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I wasn't pumped last night, and I wasn't freaking excited last night. But, Aaron, I'm old enough to remember 2019 when Orlando went into Toronto and beat the Raptors, who, by the way, would ultimately go on, I believe, to win the title that year, if memory serves. Orlando was up 1-0 in that series, did not sniff a victory the rest of the series. In the bubble, in Disney, in 2020, the Magic took a 1-0 lead against Giannis and the Bucks. Didn't sniff a win the rest of the series, lost 4-1. So Orlando, as a big underdog, as either a 7 or an 8 seed, we've been here before, winning game 1. And then we'd go on to lose 4 in a row. So I don't have any thoughts about winning the series yet. What I will say is this. I have been as down on the Orlando Magic as pretty much any Magic fan that I'm sure that you know. And I think if you're a fan of Orlando and if you're passionate about Orlando, it has been a ridiculous year. With the expectations coming in, the money being spent, some of the decisions that have been made, some of the things that have been said, it has been exhausting. It has been flat out exhausting. And after losing to Philadelphia last week, well, first off, after losing to the Celtics G League team on Sunday last week, and then losing to Philadelphia where they literally could not score in the fourth quarter, I was done. I was like, I'm done with this. Every night I just watch and I get pissed off. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm a diehard Magic fan. I love them. But at a certain point, a season just needs to end. And yeah, I said all that. I'm not going to take that back now. I said all of that because I didn't think this team would show any heart or any pride. Because why would they? They really hadn't all year. I don't know what happened after that game against Philadelphia. Charlotte had beaten Orlando's brains in a majority of this season in games they'd played together. Orlando took them behind the woodshed on Friday and just absolutely spanked their bottom. I mean, just sent Charlotte back 3 years. It was unbelievable, the beating the Magic gave the Hornets. And that was an attention grabber because that's a terrible matchup for Orlando. We couldn't stop LaMelo Ball all year. We couldn't stop Bridges all year. The Hornets cooked us all year. And Orlando beat them by like 40. So they had my attention on Friday. But then you're going to Detroit. You're going into the Motor City. You're a 12-point underdog or whatever it was, 11-point underdog. And for Detroit to never lead in the game as a 1 seed, they never had the lead last night. Orlando led from start to finish, all 48 minutes. Franz Wagner looks as healthy as he's looked all year. Jalen Suggs was diving around doing his thing. Banchero wasn't timid with the ball. Wendell Carter, Desmond Bain. Look, this is the Orlando team we thought we were going to see the entire year. And the one thing about Orlando, the one thing I have noticed, particularly last night, is they hit rock bottom. You lose to the Celtics G League team 8 days ago, which is what they did. They lost to a Celtics team where the Celtics didn't play their top 7 players. It was as embarrassing as you can get as an NBA basketball player. That's rock bottom. It wasn't going to get any worse than that. I don't know if it was a players only meeting. I don't know what it was. But they look like they're playing pissed. And they look healthy for the first time all year. Detroit's got a series on their hands. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Orlando's going to win 4 out of 7. But I'll tell you this, they've already stolen home court. Detroit better win on Wednesday. If Orlando gets game 2, the series is over. Because Detroit's not going to win 4 out of 5, including having to win 2 in Orlando. Are you kidding? I can't imagine that happening. Orlando plays pretty well at home. Huge game on Wednesday. But I'll give the Magic credit. I'll give Jamal Mosley credit. I still don't think he keeps his job if they lose this series. I still would let him go if they lose this series. But I'm man enough to give him credit that he had those guys look prepared, looked angry, and looked darn good last night. Let's talk about the win over Detroit. Let's talk about the rest of the NBA playoffs with Brian Toporek of Bleacher Report and Forbes. He joins us next on a Monday evening here in Jacksonville, Florida. We're glad you're with us. Hacker After Dark till 10 o'clock. It's 1010XL, and it's 92.5 FM.
The home of the home team you grew up with.
McCardell is the Thunder and the Thunder and Lightning combination, along with Jimmy Smith. Quite a duo.
1010XL.
Hey, it's Matt Hayes with an opportunity again this year, just in case you haven't taken advantage of it in the past. Take the opportunity to drop 40 pounds by the 4th with a Waco 180. It sounds a little different when you put a real goal to it, doesn't it? To make it easier, a Waco 180 has lost Reclaim by a Waco 180. Reclaim is a simple 10-week plan designed to help you reach your weight and health goals. A beginning and an end and a real finish line. It just makes more sense. I dropped my 40 within 10 weeks, and like I always tell you, it was easy. Reclaim by Waco 180 arrives at the perfect time for you to reach your 40 by the 4th and then keep it off with free support for life. Any medication, diet, or workout plan will say you'll see the results. But how many will say in 10 weeks you'll be a new version of yourself, thanking the old you for making that call to a Waco 180? 40 by the 4th isn't just a slogan. It's an opportunity to succeed with Reclaim by Waco 180. Only at Waco180weightloss.com.
If you love the Jags, if you crave the NFL, we make a show for you. It's Jaguars Today with experts and insiders. Locked down by Renewal by Anderson Custom Windows and Doors. 10 to noon weekdays on 1010XL.
Let me tell you something smart homeowners are doing. They're getting ahead of problems before summer shows up. Now, right now at Duck Duck Rooter, there are 3 really good reasons to call. You can get your AC checked out and ready for summer for just $99. Got a big plumbing repair coming up, like a whole house repipe? You can save $500. And if it's time to pump your septic tank, the Duck Duck crew will run a sewer camera inspection for only $99, in addition to the price of the pump out. 3 great deals, 1 trusted team. Call 904-862-6769 or duckduckrooter.com.
Home of the Jacksonville Jaguars. WJXL AM Jacksonville Beach. WJXL FM Jacksonville Beach.
Tom McManus here for Armstrong Fence Company, a locally owned and operated business on the First Coast for nearly 20 years. Known for reliability, quality craftsmanship, and professional service, Armstrong Fence handles it all, from big projects like stadiums and schools to your very own backyard. They build a wicked strong fence, and they do it right the first time. When you need a fence in Jacksonville, trust Armstrong Fence Company. Yeah, we did the fence.
1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Still, present, ready. Farah doesn't flinch. Here's another call on the 1010XL hotline, driven by Key Buick GMC, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty.
Back here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville. We are glad you are with us. The NBA playoffs are underway, and Boy, are they ever underway in Orlando. The Magic go up to Detroit last night and take game one from the number one seeded Pistons in a game Detroit never led. The number one seed at home never led in the 48 minutes they played Orlando in game one. Now, is that a one-off, or maybe can Orlando do something in this series? We'll certainly talk about that. We'll look around the rest of the NBA postseason as well with Brian Toporek. He does a terrific job covering the NBA for both Bleacher Report and Forbes, and Brian's always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL. Brian, how we doing, man?
Doing well. Fun start to the playoffs, especially for you guys down in Orlando. So congrats on the big win.
Yeah, look, the road teams were awful, and the series looked like every one of them looked like, oh my goodness, what are we doing? Orlando never was trailing. They were the only road team that won in game one. Brian, how did they pull that off? Because this time last week, it was a much different story for the Magic.
I know. Tell me, yeah. Even a couple days ago, I mean, going into Friday, they came off that uninspiring performance against the Joel Embiid-less Sixers in the 7-8 play-in game on Wednesday. And, everyone was booking their trips to Cancun for the Magic going into that Friday game. The Hornets had been one of the hottest teams in the NBA since the start of 2026. They were favored going into that game, and, the Magic just annihilated them. And, this was the concern going into the playoffs for the Pistons, is that their defense was, fantastic all season, but there was some concern. Would the offense carry over? Where would they get enough offense outside of Cade Cunningham? Cade had 39 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, fewer assists than you're typically expecting from him, but, he can't do much more than that. He's pretty efficient, too, on 13 and 27 shooting. But other than that, Tobias Harris was the only other guy on the Pistons who cracked double digits. I mean, Jalen Duren, one of the finalists for Most Improved Player this year, All-Star this year. Fantastic leap for him. 8 points on 3 or 4 shooting, 7 rebounds. I mean, I think that's the story of the game. If the Magic are able to limit his effectiveness as an offensive threat, where is this offense going to come from the Detroit Pistons? Because it's certainly not going to be Asar Thompson. Tobias Harris had 17 points on 5 of 15 shooting, which is not the most efficient performance, but he's the only other guy in double figures. So, a well-rounded game for the Magic. All 5 of their starters in double figures. Paolo led the team with 23 points, but Franz played well. Wendell Carter Jr. outplayed Jalen Duren. And if that's going to happen 3 more times, you got to feel pretty good about the Magic's chances in the series.
Well, look, I mean, I don't have any high expectations after one game. Now, I will say this. I've watched 82 Magic regular season games. I'm a diehard. And the one thing I took away from last night is that team looked pissed off. All right. Now, because they've been raked over the coals, and I'm not going to throw stones in a glass house. For anybody that follows me on social media, I've turned into Randy Quaid from Major League 2 at times about this team. Back up the truck, back it up. Just they were awful, and losing games to Indiana and losing inexplicable games to Boston to end the year. Mosley was as good as gone. Again, one game. But that team looked angry. And not only were they angry, Brian, they're healthy for the first time all year. Detroit's got a series on their hands, I think.
It does seem like that. And, yeah, I mean, that was the narrative going into Friday as well, that Jamal Mosley seemed like a dead man walking. And, I don't know if the play-in victory is enough to save his job, if they end up winning this series, if that's enough to save this job. I almost wonder if they're doing this in spite of him. He is not really influencing the security of his job either way. I'm guessing they move on regardless after this season, because there was just so much speculation about how his relationship with Paolo in particular. And, typically in the NBA, if there's a battle between the coach and the star player, 99 times out of 100, the star player is going to win that battle. So I'm guessing regardless of what happens, barring a run to the conference finals or the finals, I'm still guessing that Jamal Mosley is on a scorching hot seat. But yeah, I mean, this is the Magic team that we expected to see coming into the year. The Magic were one of the trendy dark horse picks. It was supposed to be Cleveland and New York at the top of the East. Boston was kind of an afterthought because of the Tatum injury and because of all their offseason changes. But people figured they'd at least still be in the mix for the playoffs. Philly was in there, Atlanta was in there, Orlando was supposed to be in there. And they just had such a disappointing season, in part because of all of the injuries, in part because they also just their offense was so uninspiring for most of the season. No, this was a really encouraging performance. And frankly, they left some meat on the bone. I mean, Desmond Bane, 17 points on 7 of 20 shooting, 1 of 8 from deep. He's a much better shooter than that. He's dealing with an unbelievable defender in Thompson. So maybe they won't see a 35-point game out of him at some point this series. But Franz looked really good. I think this is probably one of the better games he played since his return from his injury. And if that's the case, if he can keep that up, it's time to get a little nervous in Detroit.
Final thought about the Magic, Brian. I want to move on to other series. Again, Brian Toporek, Bleacher Report, and Forbes with us here talking NBA. The only thing I thought last week when Orlando lost to Philadelphia, and look, I thought this for 5 seconds, and then I went on social media and just vented about how awful Orlando was. I thought, all right, you're going to have to either play Boston or Detroit. You're not beating Boston, at least with the way the Orlando was playing. So losing that Philadelphia game, in the back of my mind, I thought, well, you're not going to beat Boston anyway. Either the season's going to end and they're going to clean house, or they're going to beat Charlotte and they're going to get a more favorable matchup. And that is what happened. I mean, if you're Detroit, you got to be looking at yourself and looking at the NBA powers to be like, wait a minute. We won 60 games. We're the number 1 seed. And now all of a sudden we get a healthy and an angry Orlando team. Detroit got the short end of the stick here.
Yeah, they definitely did. I mean, Detroit much rather would have faced the Joel Embiid-less Sixers than the Magic or the Hornets, frankly. I think regardless of who won that game on Friday, we saw what Boston did to Philly yesterday. I think they were clearly the weakest team in the field. And unfortunately, the bracket just did not shake out that way. And, I've seen some speculation did Orlando intentionally throw the game on Wednesday so they would get the Pistons? And I think that's a step too far. You're not going to throw away a guaranteed playoff spot and, put yourself into a win-or-go-home game just so you can draw an easier first-round matchup. But, I think to your point, that was a silver lining that, I do not think they would have beat the Boston Celtics. I think I'm imagining the Pistons are still favored in this series, but I'm guessing it's viewed as close to a toss-up by now.
Brian, does the NBA have a problem? Because outside of Orlando and Detroit, game ones were, they were awful for the most part. I mean, is there an issue? Are there too many teams getting in?
I don't know if it's too many teams getting in. I mean, we've had this set up for a while now, and, typically a 1-8 matchup is not the most competitive. I think there's just really a disparity toward the top of the league where the top 3-4 teams are so much better than everyone else that it leads to what we saw. OKC versus the Suns was a complete blowout. Philly against Boston without Joel Embiid was a complete blowout. But frankly, I don't think even with Joel Embiid, I think the result would have been fairly similar. This is just a byproduct of how the first round typically goes. There's usually a couple of competitive series, which I think we're still going to get in, hopefully in Orlando, Detroit. I think Minnesota, Denver is shaping up to be competitive. I'm guessing that Knicks, Hawks is going to be competitive. We'll see about Cleveland, Toronto. Emmanuel quickly missed game 1. If he's not back in game 2, it might be lights out for the Raptors. But I'm not too stressed about a couple blowout series. It's just always how this type of thing goes in the first round, and frankly, you're just separating the wheat from the chaff. And I think the second round, we've got a very decent likelihood of Boston Knicks, potentially Spurs Nuggets. There could be some very, very fun series in the conference semifinals and moving on beyond that.
Brian Toporek, Bleacher Report, and Forbes. Brian, let's go to the Eastern Conference. Outside of Orlando and Detroit, of the teams that lost game 1, who do you think still could make a series out of it?
I think the Hawks, they would be my pick. I thought that was going to be the most competitive first-round series in the East. I think the Knicks' size is pretty problematic for them, and that's something they're going to have to figure out sooner than later. They only got out-rebounded by 5 in that game, but Towns was phenomenal. I mean, Jalen Brunson just buried them in the first quarter. Took a while for Nickeil Alexander-Walker to get going. CJ McCollum was really good, but I don't know how 26 points on 11-20 shooting. That's probably one of the better games he's going to end up having in this series. So, there's a real chance, like going into the playoffs, I thought all 4 of the top seeds were going to advance. There's a chance that still happens, but I think if one, like Philly is done, Toronto, again, if Quickly can't come back tonight, they're in a lot of trouble. So I just, by process of elimination, that leaves the Hawks. But I actually do think they just have the depth and the talent. And they've also been one of the better teams in the NBA, not just the East, for the last couple months. So not a surprise that they lost game 1, but I'm guessing we'll see what happens in game 2. But I think they take at least 1 or 2 back in Atlanta.
Same question out west. I guess I'll answer my own question here. If Durant gets healthy, which was quite the shock, maybe Houston is still in that series. But of the teams down 1-0 in the West, who do you still think has a puncher's chance?
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar situation where the Suns are just toast. They have 84 points against that Thunder defense is brutal. Wemby looked ridiculous last night. So I think the Blazers are probably overmatched as well. So that leaves us Timberwolves and that leaves us Rockets. And yeah, to your point, if KD's back, we're still not expecting Luka or Reeves to come back probably at all in that series, or at least until late in the series. So LeBron had a throw back the clock performance in game 1. Luke Kennard was phenomenal in game 1, but now Houston knows who to lock into. And it would not shock me if they win game 2. Timberwolves are keeping it close. Rudy Gobert played so well against Jokic, but Ant just doesn't look fully right. He was dealing with a knee issue late in the year, and I think it still seems like it's still bothering him a bit. So if you don't have a fully healthy Anthony Edwards against the Nuggets, that's an uphill battle.
I want to end with Orlando. A final thought as we swing back there. Quickly in the West, though, is it Minnesota and Houston that probably have the most pressure on them of the teams down 1-0? I mean, both teams had a lot of expectations coming into the year.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair to say. I mean, no one expected the Suns to even make the playoffs, so this is just a free roll for them. And, the Blazers made the trade for Drew Holiday with the hopes of making the playoffs and, moving this rebuild forward a little bit. So I'd say kind of just mission accomplished for them. I think, really this was always going to be the problem in the West, that realistically 5 or 6 teams came in to the season with, I don't know if you want to say legitimate title aspirations, but, they were hoping to at least win a round or 2 in the playoffs. And if you have that many teams with that goal, by default, someone is going to whiff on that. And, I think what's kind of scary from Houston's perspective is that they have the ammunition to go shopping for a big name this summer. So if they fall flat on their faces against the Luka and Reeves-less Lakers, does that increase their desire to go hunting for a Giannis Antetokounmpo or LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard? I think it's going to be a really fascinating subplot to how the rest of the series plays out.
Final moments, Brian Toporek, Bleacher Report, and Forbes. Brian, final question. Game 2, Orlando and Detroit comes up on Wednesday night. It's must win for Detroit, right? If you go down 0-2, losing 2 games at home, that means they have to go to Orlando and win 2. I mean, Detroit's got to win on Wednesday, correct?
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. I think we're going to see a much more inspired performance out of Detroit. I think this is kind of a wake-up call to them, and something tells me Jalen Duren is not going to have 8 points on Wednesday. I think we're going to see a much more emphasis on getting him rolling early to take some of the offensive pressure off of Cade as well.
It certainly looked like, at least last night, that Orlando was content with letting Cade Cunningham score. They said, you can do whatever you want. I mean, he took 27 shots. They were focusing on stopping the other guys. It's all about adjustments, but that was certainly an interesting strategy Orlando had, and it worked.
Yeah, and I mean, they're not the first to do that type of thing where it's, you're almost better off. I think OKC kind of took the same approach with Devin Booker because, Devin Booker as a playmaker is kind of what buried the Warriors on in the playing game where Jalen Green was just going off, and they devoted so much attention to Booker, and Booker's more than happy to pass. So I think this is a kind of common strategy in the playoffs where you want to almost goad an opponent into doing something that they're comfortable doing, but like Cade Cunningham is most dangerous when he has got it rolling as a scorer and the passer. So if you take away one of those two things, still a great player, obviously. I mean, 39 points in a playoff game, but you're taking away one of the things that makes him, an all-star, an all-NBA player. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Detroit tries to get that portion of his game unlocked against, the Magic have a ton of length and a ton of really good defenders. So they've got the types of personnel to make it a challenge for him.
Brian, tell the good folks here in Jacksonville, Bleacher Report, Forbes, where they can find your work as the NBA playoffs continue.
Sure. Yeah. You can find, and I sadly write about the Sixers a lot, so you can find that on SI. Not for much longer, it feels like. We've got another week or so, and then off-season mode for that. General NBA coverage at Forbes Sports and Fanside, and then do some Lakers stuff at Silver Screen and Roll over at SB Nation. So, yeah, please give all that a follow, and I'm sure I'll be writing about the Magic. I don't want to end on a dour note, but I am happy that the Magic are doing this now, because I have written about this recently where, I think especially with Anthony Black's emergence, it's going to be tough to keep this core together financially beyond next season. So I think they've got one more year with this group, and then I'm very interested to see where they go from there.
I agree. There's no doubt about it, but that'll be a problem for another day. We'll focus on Game 2, Orlando and Detroit, Wednesday. Orlando leads the series 1-0. Brian Toporek. Brian, I know you're busy, man. Thank you for the time. We'll do it again in a couple of weeks.
Of course, anytime.
1010XL, perfect sports radio.
It was perfectly planned, but it was executed with Neolithic incompetence.
1010XL.
Hey, Hicken here. I couldn't be any happier than to join the George Moore Chevrolet family. When I say family, I mean it. Visit their beautiful showroom today off Atlantic Boulevard. Find out exactly what I'm talking about. No pressure, just friendly help. And whether you want a car, a truck, SUV, electric, pre-owned, you name it, George Moore Chevrolet has it. And if you can't make it over to Atlantic Boulevard, no problem. MooreChevy.com is easy to navigate as any site you will try. It's never been more easy to use. George Moore Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
Credit card interest rates are now over 29%. Most people are only making the minimum payments, so they're getting nowhere. Hey, Prosser here, but here's what many homeowners don't realize. Using the equity in your home, you can easily access hundreds of thousands in cash. With Loan Pronto's Rapid Equity Loan, you can pay off your credit card, your existing HELOC, your car loans, or get money for that home improvement project. One client just got $100,000 approved and saved over $1,500 a month. Here's the best part. With Loan Pronto, you can do it all from your phone. With zero out-of-pocket, no hard credit pull up front, no appraisal, no long drawn-out bank process, and no touching your first mortgage. Rates are at a near 3-year low. Act now. Go to loanpronto.com. See how much you can get in about 60 seconds. Loan Pronto, 2,800 5-star Google reviews. Call 904-999-1508 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Whoa. Okay. This one says you get a free phone if you switch. Hey, this one also says you get a free phone if you switch.
Yeah, they all do, hon.
Wait. The T-Mobile one says families saved over $3,700 versus the other big guys in the past 5 years. And their experience plans have Netflix included, plus a year of Dash Pass by DoorDash.
Hang on. Let me see that. And a 5-year price guarantee? Oh, yeah, we're switching.
That's what I'm talking about. Do we clap now, or...?
I'm thinking half-half.
At T-Mobile, get savings that keep stacking up. That's value you can feel every day. Switch now at T-Mobile.
Savings based on Harris X billing snapshots from Q3 2021 to Q4 2025 among accounts with 3+ voice lines compared to AT&T and Verizon, excluding discounts, credits, and optional charges. See harrisx.com/T-Mobile. Price guarantee on talk, text, and data. Exclusions like taxes and fees apply. See T-Mobile.com.
Catch Gators baseball all season long on 1010XL. Pitched by the personal injury attorneys of Farah and Farah, Randy Marion Cadillac of Jacksonville, and Renewal by Anderson Custom Windows and Doors. 1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. When it's game time, Farah doesn't flinch. Now, the Monahan's golden moment. Monahan Jewelers in Atlantic Beach, your local family jewelers.
Yeah, there's been a lot of moments tonight. Jaguars back at the Miller Electric Center 99 days after the season ended last year. Today was day one of the offseason program as you start turning the page to the 2026 season. Of course, this week as well, the NFL Draft, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday up in Pittsburgh, 11 picks total for the Jaguars. You also had the news coming out of Gainesville, Ruben Chinyalu going into the NBA Draft, but maintaining his college eligibility, much like he did last year. Last year, he did the same thing, opted to return to Florida. Is he going to return to Florida this year? We'll see. But again, he is testing the waters, putting his name in the hat, but giving himself the option to come back to Gainesville. And a story that's just starting to brew this evening, and I know Gator fans, you don't want to hear this. If Steve Kerr is not going to return as head coach of Golden State, at least one NBA insider, Kevin O'Connor of Yahoo Sports, believes Golden State's potential top target would be Todd Golden. From his time out there at the University of San Francisco, he knows the Golden State brass very well from the time he spent out there. Obviously, as successful as he's been, that is certainly something to keep your eye on moving forward. Speaking of the Gators, something else to keep your eye on is the recruiting trail. John Summerall on the gridiron has been hot on the recruiting trail in 2027. What about Mike Norvell in Tallahassee? What's their recruiting picture look like? Andrew Ivins is a director of high school football scouting for 247sports.com. Where do Florida and Florida State both stand in the recruiting game for the 2027 class? We'll talk to Andrew Ivins of 247 Sports next, right here on Hacker After Dark.
The glory of Victory Lane.
Here they come, checker flag.
Sunday at Talladega Super Speedway, powered by the Plumbers and Pipefitters Local Union 234. From the station with the most horsepower, 1010XL. Streaming live from the XL Digital Studios. Polished by Harbor Dental Care, the locally owned smile restoration experts.
You know what homeowners in Northeast Florida don't want to deal with? 3 phone calls in the same week. One because the drain won't drain, one because the septic system is acting up, and one because the AC decided summer vacation started early. That's why homeowners keep one number saved in their phone: DuckDuckRooter Plumbing, Septic, and Air Conditioning. Clogged pipes, septic problem, AC blowing warm air. One call brings the right team to your door. Plumbing, septic, air conditioning, all handled by one trusted crew. Call 904-862-6769 or DuckDuckRooter.com.
Feel the power. Hear the legend. One Night of Queen, performed by Gary Mullen and the Works. The look, the sound, the electrifying showmanship of one of rock's greatest bands. One Night of Queen, April 29th at Florida Theater. Get your tickets now at floridatheater.com.
Hey, Jacksonville, I'm sure by now you've seen our bright green GFL trucks and containers throughout the greater Jacksonville area. We are an industry leader in solid waste and would love the opportunity to earn your business. We are committed to customer service, reliability, and have unwavering focus on safety. Whether commercial or construction, let us haul your waste away. Call 904-760-5880 to get a quote today. GFL, green for life.
Hey, it's Matt Hayes with an opportunity again this year, just in case you haven't taken advantage of it in the past. Take the opportunity to drop 40 pounds by the 4th with a Waco 180. It sounds a little different when you put a real goal to it, doesn't it? To make it easier, a Waco 180 has lost Reclaim by a Waco 180. Reclaim is a simple 10-week plan designed to help you reach your weight and health goals, a beginning and an end and a real finish line. It just makes more sense. I dropped my 40 within 10 weeks, and like I always tell you, it was easy. Reclaim by a Waco 180 arrives at the perfect time for you to reach your 40 by the 4th and then keep it off with free support for life. Any medication, diet, or workout plan will say you'll see the results. But how many will say in 10 weeks you'll be a new version of yourself, thanking the old you for making that call to a Waco 180? 40 by the 4th isn't just a slogan, It's an opportunity to succeed with Reclaim by Awaken 180. Only at awaken180weightloss.com.
Double the action, double the fun. Join Sporting Jags Saturday, April 25th at UNF's Hodges Stadium for an exciting pro soccer doubleheader. The women's team gets things going at 2 against Lexington, featuring an appearance from competitive eating legend Joey Chestnut. Have a blast after in the fun zone before the men pick things back up at 7:30 against Miami. Secure your seats at sportingjax.com or call 863-KICK. That's 863-KICK. Pro Soccer, Pro Jax.
Leon Serza here, your lemon pepper guy. You know Wingstop always delivers, and I'm not talking about their cooked-to-order, hand-sauced and tossed chicken sandwich in your choice of 12 mouth-watering flavors. I'm not talking about the house-made ranch, so good nobody will blame you if you double dip. I'm talking about Wingstop that delivers straight to your door, and did you know they're open until 1 a.m.? So visit wingstop.com or use the app to get flavors delivered right to your door late night only at Wingstop.
Can't stop. Wingstop. 1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Focused, fueled, fearless, Farah. Here's another call on the 1010XL hotline, driven by Key Buick GMC, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty.
2.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville. We are glad you are with us. Just coming out of spring football, really all over the country. Recruiting is really heating up, and for the Florida Gators, man, is it ever heating up. They are on a hot streak right now with John Summerall. 7 recruits for the 2027 class, including a 5-star offensive lineman and a couple of 4-stars that have been added in the last 2 weeks. Let's talk about John Summerall, what's working for him on the recruiting trail right now. We'll also talk a little Florida State as well with Mike Norvell and the Seminoles. Andrew Ivins is the director of high school football scouting for 247sports.com. Of course, 247 Sports, one of the go-tos when it comes for recruiting. And Andrew's always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Andrew, it's been a little while, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Busy time of the year. Been all over the country. Was just in Dallas this weekend, seeing some of these targets for both the Gators and Seminoles.
You know, and that's a great point. The reason we love having you on is you travel all over the place. Again, when you're the director of high school football scouting for a website like 247 Sports, you are obviously one of the guys to talk to when it comes to this sort of thing. And on the surface, John Summerall at Florida, I want to talk to you about the hire itself in a moment. But, man, they're on a hot streak right now on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, you're right, Ryan. And I think, you touched on that 5-star a few seconds ago. And I think that's the story of the spring for the Gators. I was kind of going through some of my notes, and Florida hasn't signed a 5-star offensive lineman since Martez Ivy back in 2015. So it has been a while since they've got one of these premium big bodies up front, and we love Maxwell Hiller. I mean, he's an absolute bully in the phone booth. We grade him out as an interior projection, but this is a guy that Florida's absolutely going to give every chance to start on the outside at one of those tackle positions. And he is as clean and as polished as they come. A kid out of Pennsylvania. I mean, this is a kid that was looking at Penn State when Phil Trotwine was there. Obviously, Phil now on John Summerall's staff. And the Gators get this one done. And, we're going to see it in a few days with the first round of the NFL draft. Some of these 3-and-done offensive linemen like Francis Mauanoa at Miami, Caden Proctor there at Alabama, the 2 kids out of Utah, Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fano. I would put Maxwell Hiller right in that bucket. I think if you're a Florida fan, you need to view him as a guy that's going to challenge for a starting spot right away. And he's got a chance to walk across the stage one day and shake hands with the NFL commissioner. The other thing, if you're a Florida basketball fan, I think you need to be excited about Maxwell Hiller because his younger brother is one of the top recruits in the class of 2028. He's a 5-star as well in basketball. So Maxwell Hiller, a huge, huge addition position and really kind of shores up or is going to help shore up a position that Florida has struggled to find that premium talent over the years.
Well, and to that point, Andrew, there are a lot of commitments that, all right, they're big news for a day or two, and then, all right, what's the next story? A Maxwell Hiller, a 5-star plus offensive lineman, like you said, it would be the first one to sign in Gainesville in 2015. That's an attention grabber, not only for the media that covers recruiting, but for other players in the class of 2027, correct?
It is. And here's the other thing. I mean, so much has changed with the transfer portal, obviously, and the revenue share and the name, image, and likeness. But here's the reality. There are only so many of these premium big bodies every year, whether it be in the transfer portal, whether it be in the high school ranks. So at some point, if you want those difference makers in the trenches, and you think about the SEC, you think about all the pass rushes you're going to face at the point of attack. Like, if you want one of these difference makers, you're going to have to open up the checkbook at some point, whether it be a transfer from another school or a guy from the high school ranks. So I think for Florida to get a kid that they're going to have a chance to mold as early as next January, let's assume he's a early enrollee. I mean, that's huge. And he's, again, a guy that I think, can play 4 or 5 different spots for you on that line. So for Phil Trotwine, who did wonders right during his time at Penn State with that offensive line, it's a huge addition. And I think it also kind of signals, all right, what is John Summerall? What is this program going to look like? What is their philosophy when it comes to building out that roster? And to me, Maxwell Hiller signals, all right, we want to be physical in the trenches, right? We want to start there and then build out. So huge addition. I mean, they're going to have to hang on down the stretch, but this kid has a ton of familiarity with Phil. And I think, again, this guy, he's going to be the headliner of this recruiting class, but they're not done. I mean, they're chasing some other big fish as well.
According to 247sports.com, Maxwell Hiller is rated the #1 interior offensive lineman in America for the 27 class. Andrew Ivins is the director of high school football scouting for 247sports.com, and he's always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. All right, Andrew, John Summerall, you and I haven't spoke since the hire was made. Look, outside of his name not being Lane Kiffin, that might be his only flaw, right? I mean, since he took the job, the retainment of Jaden Baugh and Jaden Woods, and we know about Vernell Brown and Dallas Wilson, Miles Graham, he did great job retaining guys there. And he's come in and made an impact in the recruiting game, as we're talking about. I mean, they had over 40,000 there for the spring game about a week and a half ago. I think if you're a Gator fan, Andrew, I don't know how you can't be anything but intrigued about what John Summerall has done so far.
I would agree, and I really like kind of how he assembled his staff. Buster Faulkner coming in from Georgia Tech. I mean, me personally, hey, sitting on the couch on Saturdays, I've always loved what the Yellow Jackets did on that side of the ball. He's a offensive play caller that gave Georgia fits over the years. And I think about Florida's roster. You kind of look at some of these guys that they're targeting and going after on the recruiting trail. They're going to get creative. And to me, Vernell Brown III and Eric Singleton, like those guys, pre-snap motion, get them the ball in space. It's going to be fun, and it's going to be exciting. I think kind of one of – I don't want to say it was a question mark, but, John Summerall going from Tulane, right, where you're in the American Conference into the SEC, you're punching up. You're recruiting a different caliber of athlete. With that being said, us at 247 Sports, hey, we rank all the signees, every FBS signee every year. And just having had a chance to kind of dig into Tulane's classes in recent cycles, they had gotten a lot of height, weight, speed prospects. And they were in a territory where I think it's one of the most under-recruited regions in all of America. They're in Louisiana. I mean, per capita, the state of Louisiana produces more NFL prospects than anywhere else, right? So I've been wondering, all right, what does it look like in terms of them? Now they're in Gainesville kind of building out this recruiting class. And I think the early returns are really positive. We talked about Maxwell Hiller, but how about quarterback Davin Davidson out of the Sarasota area, leads Cardinal Mooney to a state title? I mean, you get around this kid, He's 6'5". He throws a fastball, a kid that could have played college baseball if he wanted to go that route. And Davin Davidson, back in January, he only had 5 scholarship offers. He was at an Elite 11 regional. We stamped him. He was the alpha dog. He was kind of the story of event. His recruitment exploded, and this kid could have went anywhere in the country. But now he's committed to the Florida Gators, right? And to me, the ceiling is extremely high with him, just given the physical tools. Now, I think he needs to keep progressing, but if you think about Florida and you look at that quarterback room, obviously Tramel Jones is battling with Aaron Philo right now. Summerall on that staff seems to be pretty excited about Will Griffin, the Gatorade Player of the Year this past fall in the state of Florida. So I think he kind of brings a higher floor. And now you've got Davin Davidson, who's might have a lower floor, but that ceiling is extremely high. He kind of reminds me of Austin Mack, who is at Alabama in that quarterback competition. I think another comp for him reminds me a little bit of Felipe Franks. And when I say that, Florida fans, just kind of that frame and how big he is and his ability to push the ball down the field. So I think that was a big win. I think it was a bit of a statement win. Miami was involved with Davin Davidson. Georgia was involved with Davin Davidson. It's not the deepest of quarterback years, this class of 2027. And, Florida's got one of the best. Davin's going to be out at the Elite 11 finals this summer. So that was a big win. And then I really like the corner, Amari Nugent, out of American Heritage. I always say it's kind of my rule of thumb. I've been doing this for a decade. Always bet on defensive backs out of American Heritage. Obviously, that's a program that produced Pat Surtain, Tyson Campbell, but not even the high-profile guys, just the DBs that come out of that school. They tend to hit. So really, really like those two additions. They're pairing Amari Nugent with a Marion Fountain, big, long corner out of the state of Georgia. He was committed to South Carolina, former high school quarterback that has made the transition to the defensive side of the ball. So there's a lot to like in this recruiting class. And then I think the other thing, when you look at some of the prospects that were in Gainesville for those spring practices for the junior days, some of them that are going to be on campus this summer for the official visits, I think Florida's got a chance to contend for a top 10 recruiting class. And it's been a while since we've been able to say that.
Couple more for Andrew Ivins, 247sports.com. Andrew, let's go over to the state capitol. Let's go to Tallahassee. For all the positivity that we just talked about with Florida, I don't know if we can take any of that to Tallahassee. And truthfully, I've been lucky enough to do this for over 2 decades. I can't remember a more quiet offseason. Now, that might be good. That might be bad. I don't know. There's just not a lot of news coming out of Tallahassee with Mike Norvell. They closed practice to the media. They had no spring game. Norvell is not doing the Seminole spring speaking tour. How are they doing on the recruiting trail as it stands right now?
Yeah, there's like a black cloud of smoke over Tallahassee right now. And look, I'll be honest. I think Florida State's done some nice things in terms of getting talent on campus. They've completely, revamped that personnel department, front office, whatever you want to call it. There's been some coaching staff changes. Look, it's tough times right now at Florida State, and the student athletes out there, the prospective student athletes, the 16, 17, 18-year-olds, right? Your high school juniors, the rising seniors, they're well aware of what happened and how things played out last year. Now, with that being said, you look at the recruiting class right now, they're sitting just outside the top 25. They got 6 guys in the boat. And in my opinion, they got one of the state's top safeties committed in Mekhi Williams out of Ruskin, Florida, Leonard High School. He's got 10 interceptions in 30 varsity games. I think he's one of the best ball hawks nationally in this class. There was a time he committed very early to Florida State. I think Miami made a run at him. A few other schools did as well. He has said he has shut things down. Now we'll see. Obviously a ways to go before pen can meet paper. But he's a really, really nice addition. And I think Mike Norvell also deserves credit for how Florida State closed out last recruiting cycle. It did not go well on the field, and they still were able to get some guys that I think we're going to see play for the Seminoles here this upcoming fall. Chuck Kinn in the corner out of Booker, Sarasota. That was a kid that, was a top 100 prospect, really good in terms of his senior season, what we saw from him on the camp circuit. The one I'm kind of excited about and has flown a little bit under the radar, but the reviews coming out of spring practices. Franklin Whitley, he was a top 247 defensive lineman out of the state of South Carolina, a kid that was a basketball focused athlete for out much of his life, and then he played football the past 2 years. Some early good returns, and I think that's big for Florida State. I mentioned it with Maxwell Hiller in Florida. Look, these premium big bodies up front, you got to pay for them at some point. You got to develop them at some point. There is no draft. You can't just go out and select these guys. You got to recruit them. You got to get them there, and you got to develop them. So Franklin Whitley, they're excited about. Jamie Pinkney, a pass rusher, speed rusher out of the state of South Carolina. He's another one. And then a few wide receivers as well. Devin Carter, the son of Dexter Carter, it sounds like he's going to play as a freshman. So I think a lot of recruits right now and the people inside their camps, you know, it used to be the high school coaches and the trainers. Now you have agents repping these players. I think they want to see what it looks like for on the field for the Seminoles this upcoming season. But you have to give Mike Norvell and that staff credit for still, you know, getting in the batter's box and taking some big swings. I mean, Florida State is still getting blue chip talent on campus, and look, they're in the ACC rev share. You know, the funds are there to make a run at some of these high profile kids.
Andrew, final question. We got about 60 seconds. Recruiting in April, people say, well, it's a dead period. Not really. I mean, the more years go by, the more I've noticed that, look, kids want to get this done before their senior year. They want to enjoy their senior seasons, which begin in August. And I've seen a lot of guys committing in June and July. So we're on the doorstep, at least in years past. Tell me if I'm wrong. We're on the doorstep of a lot of these kids making up their minds.
You are correct. Times have changed. It used to be, January, December, and there still is a ton of movement just with the coaching carousel. But really, commit season it is that last week of June, first week of July. Like, that's when we see all these guys come off the board. You know, the coaches go on vacation, but some of these guys are so football addicted. They'll be sitting at their nice beach houses with their wives, and they're trying to build out their recruiting classes. So yeah, a ton of movements coming. Coaches are going to be out on the road. You know, the Sunshine State's one of the few states where there is spring football. So coaches visiting schools, watching practices, and then once we get to June, those official visits, and then you'll see them come off the board. It'll be bang, 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 bang. It really ramps up there right around July 4th. That's kind of like the new unofficial signing day, at least when it comes to the announcements in the world of football, college football recruiting.
Andrew, tell the good folks here in Jacksonville about 247sports.com and the coverage you guys will have in the coming weeks.
Yeah, you can find full spring game recaps. The guys at Swamp 247 covering Florida do an excellent job. Knowles 247 as well. And then just nationally, 247sports.com. Player rankings, team rankings, we have it all.
Andrew Ivins, 247sports.com. Andrew, I know you're busy, man. Thank you for the time. We'll do it again soon, pal.
I appreciate you having me on.
And thank you to Andrew Ivins, 247 Sports, for joining us tonight here on Hacker After Dark. As recruiting, as we talked about, we're really kind of getting into the meat of it, right? A lot of these kids are going to want to make their decisions before their senior seasons get underway in August. So you're looking June, July. Andrew mentioned July 4th as key dates, as to dates the kids are going to want to make up their mind, start finalizing some things so that, again, they can enjoy their final year of high school before heading off to college in December/January. And as for Florida, John Summerall is hot on the recruiting trail. 7 commitments for the class of 2027, 4 of those within the last 10 days or so, including Maxwell Hiller, as we talked about, the best interior offensive lineman in America, according to 247sports.com. And if you're a Florida State fan, you probably liked what you heard Andrew say about the Seminoles. Not a lot of positive things going on in Tallahassee, at least from the outside looking in, but it does appear that Mike Norvell and crew do have some talent. They've done a good job getting some blue chip prospects on campus in the recruiting game, and we'll have to see what ultimately does happen there with the Florida State Seminoles. So we certainly spent some time on that. We spent some time on the NBA playoffs, particularly the Orlando Magic, as they are coming off an enormous Game 1 win in Detroit. Game 2 of that series is not until Wednesday night. But like we talked about last week, you'll have NBA and NHL playoff action basically every day now. for the next 6 weeks or so. It is going to be awesome. It is a great time of year in the world of sports. And speaking of the time of year, 99 days after the Jaguar season ended, they were back at the Miller Electric Center today. The off-season program has begun here in Jacksonville. They reported voluntarily. It's a voluntary report, but they reported today they will be on the field next month for rookie mini camps and OTAs. As, again, the guys were given a little over 3 months off, and now they are back in the building starting preparations for the 2026 season. Well, that will just about do it, man. Very, very busy Monday night edition of Hacker After Dark. We certainly appreciate you guys hanging out with us here on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM, and we have a ton of people to thank. Andrew Ivins, the Director of High School Scouting for 247sports.com. Always enjoy the conversation with Andrew. Thank you to Brian Toporek of Bleacher Report and Forbes, talking Orlando Magic and NBA playoffs with us. And thank you to Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports. Everything going on in the world of sports. I didn't even mention we are now inside of 72 hours away from the NFL draft. Thursday, round 1. Of course, round 2 and 3 on Friday. Rounds 4 through 7 on Saturday. The Jaguars, as it stands right now, 11 draft picks total, including 4 in the top 100. So the Jaguars back to work today, and a lot of work to do this week for James Gladstone and crew at the NFL draft. Now, we will be back tomorrow night on a Tuesday, and we will do it all over again beginning at 8 o'clock. Aaron Williams was your producer tonight. Aaron, great job as always. I'm the hacker Ryan Green. And again, Jacksonville, thank you for spending part of your Monday evening with us right here on Hacker After Dark, on 1010XL, and on 92.5 FM. So for all of us here on HAD, have a terrific remainder of your Monday evening, and we will talk to you again tomorrow night on a Tuesday beginning at 8 o'clock. Until then,